Frans Sammut was a Maltese novelist and non-fiction writer. Early life. Sammut was born in Zeebrugge, Malta. He studied at the Zeebrugge Primary School, St. Aloysius College, St. Michael's Teacher Training College, the University of Malta and Perugia University. Career. Sammut first gained recognition in the early 60s when he was still in his mid-teens through his short story, A-List Career, which won first place in a contest by Gakda Kitty Barzazar, and through two other short stories which won second and fourth places in the same contest. Then in the late 1960s, he co-founded the Movement Kawian Letteraaju. Later he served as secretary of the Accademia Tal Malti. In 2010, he was elected Fellow of the International Napoleonic Society. Sammut ended his career in education as a head of school, though from 1996 to 1998 he was cultural consultant to the Prime Minister of Malta. He was married to Catherine Eniacuti Cascia, with whom he had two sons, Marc and Jean-Pierre. He published numerous works, including the best-selling novels Il Gaga, which was the basis of Gaga, the 1971 film directed by Mario Filippo Azzopardi, Samuraj, which won the Rothmans Prize, Paceville, which won the government's literary medal, and Il Holmo Multia, about which literary critic Norbert Elo Vincenti wrote, "There is nothing of its magnitude in Maltese literature." Former Prime Minister and playwright Alfred Sant considered it Sammut's masterpiece, and British author and poet Marjorie Bolton called it a colossal work. Sammut also published collections of short stories, Labyrinth, New Beat, and Rage F. Saminigietna. His non-fiction works include Ir River John of Francisa, Il Graja Utit Syra, Bonaparte F. Malta, of which a French translation, Bonaparte Malta, was published in 2008, and on the Da Vinci Code, a bilingual commentary on the international bestseller. He also edited Mikhail Anton Vasili's lexicon. Vasili is considered the father of the Maltese language. In 2006, Sammut's translation of Vasili's Moti, Aphorismari Proverbi I Maltese was published as Garged un Ilgakal, Clemilga Fuquil Maltin. In 2007, his Il Holma Multia in translation represented Malta in the Esperanto collection of classic literary works published by Mondial Books of New York. In 2008, his Il Gaga was published for the fifth time. In 2009, Sammut presented a revolutionary reinterpretation of Pietru Caxera's poem, Ziduil Qada, the oldest written document in the Maltese language. Sammut translated important works for theatre. Racine's Phèdre and Maxim Gorky's The Lower Depths, both represented at the Manoel Theatre, under the direction of poet Mario Azzopardi. Former University of Malta rector, professor of philosophy and foremost Maltese intellectual Peter Saracino Inglot said, "The genius of Sammut was in his ability as a Voltairean jester to transform a historical character into a sort of carnivalesque vector of an ironically larger-than-life mask. The reader is made to enjoy the obverse side of personalities usually regarded with unmitigated solemnity. One smiles like an accomplice in their doubts, slippings and tergiversations." The stylistic shift from historical narrative to fictional is perhaps the biggest challenge to be faced by any kind of translator. Professor Henry Frender said this of Frans Sammut: "Warm and forthright, a worthy son of Zeebrugge, an ardent Francophile, and a potentially acid polemicist in his own right, a patriot, passionate as always." Frans had a command of English as much as of Maltese, and he did not hold back any punches if he felt that he or someone else was being wronged. Former ambassador to Malta Daniel Rondo thus described Frans Sammut: "White-haired, with big eyes and white, thick moustaches, quite dark, a strong handshake, the author of Bonaparte Malta. Death." Frans Sammut's famous last words were, "My wife and I should be going to Jerusalem, but it seems plans have changed. I am now going to the heavenly Jerusalem." Saracino Inglot reacted thus to these words: I realized then that sometimes tears and laughter are interchangeable. National Prize. In May 2014, the Maltese Ministry of Education launched the Frans Sammut Prize for the Maltese language. University textbooks. Frans Sammut's novels are studied at the University of Malta. Numerous theses and papers have been written about his novels. In 2015, university lecturer and literary Dr. Marco Galea wrote that the Maltese novel is dominated by Frans Sammut and two others. In the case of fiction, the situation is not so straightforward. Emmanuel Mifsud, together with the younger Claire Azzopardi, Pierre J. Milak and Walid Nabin, have produced groundbreaking works of short fiction, but have so far shied away from tackling the novel. Offerings from other writers in this genre have been few and far between. The upshot is a curious situation where contemporary prose writing in Maltese is dominated by the short form, while the novel continues to be dominated by figures such as Frans Sammut, Alfred Sant and Trevor Ara. They have said this about Frans Sammut. Marie Benoit, The Malta Independent, 5 May 2011. What always struck me about Frans is his lack of intellectual pretension. He carried his considerable learning and extensive knowledge, especially of French history, so lightly. The greatest surprise was what lay behind the smiling facade, which gave little evidence of his well-stocked mind. Hon. Dr. Stefan Buontempo, The Malta Independent, 5 May 2011. What a giant of Maltese literature he was. Joe Felice Pace, The Sunday Times, 22 May 2011. His mastery of the language and his inborn call to be a novelist. Charles Flores, Malta Today, 8 May 2011. More than anything, Frans couldn't stand hypocrisy. He always had that quality. He could see through you. He never rested on his laurels, intellectually speaking, and always sought to learn new things and develop his viewpoints. Dr. Adrian Grima, Malta Today, 8 May 2011. He will be remembered for the unyielding sensuality of his literary prose in New Beat, the incorrigible egocentrism and machismo of some of his male characters, his unforgiving portrayal of the repressed Puritan Tsar Roseanne, the deep anguish that lacerates Samuel, the harshness of Zandru the poet violating the sacredness of the parish priestess, the intuitions, ideals and sheer beauty of the language of Asali, the memorable opening scene of his novel Samuraj, and its denouement. Partitler ist Maltasta.com, 4 May 2011. Malta lost its modern national author. Labour MPO in Bonasai described Frans Sammut as having earned for himself this title because of his stature in Maltese literature. Partite Nas Journalista MaltaRightNow.com, 4 May 2011. The PN saluted Sammut, describing him as a pillar of Maltese literature whose legacy will be enjoyed by entire generations. Lino Spiteri, The Sunday Times, 8 May 2011. The untimely death of Frans Sammut has deprived Malta of one of its greatest men of letters. He was a vivid, robust character who lit up wherever he was active, whether engaged in civil exchange of ideas or in heated debate. He always stood out as an electrifying personality. He was an intellectual in the true sense of the word, never at peace, always questioning, probing, researching, challenging. The novel Il Gaga has become an all-time classic. Ustagno, Malta Today, 8 May 2011. I'd once heard him say that he had changed his name from Frank to Frans in a fit of patriotism. Sammut gave us Il Gaga, one of the greatest Maltese novels of all time. Dr. Mario Vella, The Times, 9 May 2011. Mr. Sammut's first novel, certainly a milestone in Maltese literature. Alex Vella, Malta Today, 8 May 2011. I was immediately drawn to him, his presence, his sense of humor, and his extensive knowledge not only of the Maltese language but of its history. Anton Azzopardi, Bug Business Association Newsletter 12.2011. Even a casual conversation about his pet dog, Skipet, would elicit a glitter in his eyes that would be strongly accentuated by body gestures reminiscent of the best conductors the world stages could throw at us. Frans was open and sincere, if equally argumentative. Thank you, Frans, for having been exactly what you were, larger than life. Bibliography. Labyrinth u Stecurora, Labyrinth and Other Stories, 1968. Il Gaga, The Cage, 5 editions 1971 made into a film, Gaga, Cage, directed by Mario Philip Azzopardi 1971. Lobab Bejn Ubga, A Game Between Four People, 1972. Samuraj, Samurai, 3 editions 1975. Christu Phil Poesia Maltia 1913–1973, Christ in Maltese Poetry 1913–1973, 1977. Fedra, Racines Fedri, 1978. Il Qtil Fisqaq Il Hor, Murder in Honest Ali, 1979. Il Process Vasili, The Vasili Trial, 1980. Il Mara Taptifel, translation of D.H. Lawrence's daughter-in-law, 1980. Il Mixyatal Hadi Meli Jn Il Halcyon, The Workers' March Towards Freedom, 1982. Ir Rivelas John of Francisa. Il Raja Ut Tifsara, The French Revolution, History and Meaning, 1989. Paceville 1991. Literatura, Literature, 1992. Il Hak Matar, Monroe's Rule, 1993. Il Holma Multia, The Maltese Dream, 1994. 2012 translated into Esperanto as La Malta Revo, published in New York, 2007. Manarinu. 1994. El Atatal Apostoli, The Acts of the Apostles, 1995. Bonaparte F. Malta, Bonaparte in Malta, 1997, translated into French as Bonaparte Malta, with an introduction by Dr. Paul Bourg-Olivier, 2008. New Beat, Seasons, 1998. Rage F. Mini Gietna, Tales of Our Times, 2000. Dunog, Il Benedum Tal Poplu, Father George, A Man of the People, 2001. Rajet Hazebug, A History of Hazebug, 2001. Lexicon 2002. Gala Legal UE, Why No to the EU, 2003. Hisar Milqribljn Harjet Samphile Puel Cult Haigu, A Close Look at Saint Philip, His Life and the Devotion Towards Him, 2004. Rajet Italam F. Malta, Volume 1. The History of Education in Malta, 2004. On the Da Vinci Code, DWAR The Da Vinci Code 2006. Gajdan Ilgakal, Klimilga Fuquil Maltin, Maltese Axioms, Aphorisms and Proverbs, 2006. I. Giovanni T. La Storia dei Cavalieri di Malta, The History of the Knights of Malta, 2006, published in 2015. Alfred Sant. Il Visgiano Galbidla, Alfred Sant. A Vision for Change, 2008. Introduction to Baron Vincenzo Azzopardi's dictionary in which he analyses Caxeras, Cantilena, 2009.